Good evening. Welcome to California Today. I'm David Lamb, sitting in for Liang Zhang. Here's a preview of some of today's stories. A new city audit found that Oakland spent millions of dollars on homelessness, but an Oakland mayoral candidate says the city needs more accountability, not spending. And a new documentary tells the story of several detransitioners and their experiences with transgenderism. People who worked on the film shares what the film means to them. The governor has recently signed new bills to target climate change. He said he hopes to dominate the upcoming green energy industry. That's after the state used a large amount of natural gas to weather a major heat wave.
According to the Energy Information Administration, California used natural gas for about half of its electricity generation during the heat wave this month. Natural gas made up for 60% of the California Independent System Operator's fuel mix. That same mix was 32% 1 year prior. Data showed that wind, solar, and nuclear power sources dropped to 24% for the heat wave week, down from 40% 1 year before. Despite the brown energy dependence, Governor Gavin Newsom recently signed multiple bills into law related to climate change. He said that California's $54 billion climate agenda will allow the state to dominate the green industry. The legislation imposes limits on oil drilling, aims for carbon neutrality no later than 2045, and will mandate clean energy by 2045. Two other bills that were signed target carbon capture and removal. A final bill calls for removing carbon from the atmosphere by planting trees, restoring wetlands, and increasing public landscaping and urban forestry projects. Newsom said that electricity allows us to leapfrog into low-carbon green growth. It allows us to dominate in the next big industry. The signature comes after the state got through an intense week-long heat wave by requesting Californians reduce their power consumption.
An audit found that one Bay Area city spent nearly $70 million on homelessness, but it yielded mixed results. Entity's Eileen Ang talked to a local expert on what he said is a lack of accountability on solving the problems.
The city of Oakland revealed it spent nearly $69 million over the last 3 years to provide various services for the homeless. But there are mixed results for finding permanent housing for homeless residents and helping them enroll in benefit programs. According to the audit released on September 19th, the city has not adopted a strategic plan for providing homelessness services during one of the most significant crises in Oakland's history. Seneca Scott, an Oakland mayoral candidate, says it's consistent with the audit in 2020.
There are no work plans. There are no accountability. It is arbitrary in the sense that they provide services to encampments. It's arbitrary in the sense in which they spend the money. Now, this time, she's able to account for $69 million that went toward housing upwards of 9,000 unhoused people in Oakland. Now, that's more than we have on the streets of Oakland today.
The audit looked at homeless services like crisis response, longer-term housing, and other supportive services between 2018 to 2021. But Scott says no one knows where the money goes or if it really helped the homeless.
There are about the same number of people. Well, we pay for housing, but we don't know if they took it, if they matriculated to permanent housing, did it lead to a better life for them? Right? Were they able to free themselves from their addiction, or were they able to get better mentally? With no idea where this money went.
Scott explained the mixed results are due to failed policies like Housing First.
Housing First means you give someone with severe mental illness or drug addiction the keys to a hotel room or a condo with absolutely no expectation that they participate in their own healing. No wraparound services for their addiction or mental illness, which leads to not only property damage, or many people just leaving because they're not used to even being housed.
Between 2015 and 2022, homelessness increased 131% in Oakland, with over 5,000 people who identified as experiencing homelessness. About 34% of Oakland's homeless population were sheltered. The other 66% were not.
I think that there needs to be a public accountability from the entities and the nonprofits who receive this money to show proof of concept that they've used it to help solve the problem and not make the problem worse.
Similarly, the audit suggests a strategic plan to ensure meaningful program outcomes, public accountability and transparency, as well as a staffing review.
A new film featuring several detransitioners hopes to shed more light on the increase of transgenderism. The 42-minute documentary explores the lives of women who used to identify as male. NTD's Daniel Hall hears from the people behind the film.
Detransition Diaries, Saving Our Sisters documents the stories of several young women who tried to medically transition to being male. Jennifer Lal, a former nurse and an independent film producer based in California, believes the testimony from these detransitioners will resonate deeply with the audience.
And so we knew immediately that we had to make a film just solely focused on detransitioners. And we on purpose only interviewed women because it's a really interesting phenomenon in the United States in particular, where this is happening a lot to women. This thing called rapid onset gender dysphoria mostly strikes young women. So we wanted to on purpose focus on women in this film.
Lal says girls who are prescribed puberty blockers, testosterone, and eventually get surgery realize there is no magic cure for their mental conditions. One of the documentary's detransitioners is Kat Cattinson. She's a singer who struggled with her gender identity at a young age and wanted to become a boy. She says taking testosterone injections has permanently damaged her singing voice.
I think people should know all options, and they should know, they should keep in mind the medical risks and everything that comes with that. So I really want the best for everyone, including those who identify as trans. But, you know, the way it comes off, unfortunately, to some people is that I'm trying to speak out against a certain group, and it's really not what I'm doing at all.
She says her voice still has issues when speaking or singing for a period of time. Cattinson has since learned to accept herself after detransitioning back to female.
I realized that a lot of people didn't even know what that was, and I also was meeting a lot of other detransitioners, and I think anyone making a decision like that needs to go in hearing all possible outcomes and really deciding whether it's right for them.
Calif, a nurse, co-wrote the film.
I think for me, as co-writer, the biggest moment for me was like, these stories can be really heavy. And the women who carry them, they're so brave and they're so articulate, and they do a great job of sharing their story without, having feel sorry for them.
Another supporter of the film says some people and groups may not want to hear these women's stories.
Well, their voices are getting louder and they're getting more numerous because more and more people are detransitioning, and they shouldn't be ignored because they are the canary in the coal mine.
Both Friday and Lal have voiced their opposition to California Senate Bill 107, known as the Gender-Affirming Healthcare Bill. It would shelter parents who consent their children to use puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and gender transition surgery on their children from being sued by other states. The bill is currently on California Governor Gavin Newsom's desk to either veto or sign into law. Newsom has until September 30th to decide. Despite that, the women are not giving up their mission.
If there had been a way for me to cope with my feelings without having to take irreversible measures to transition, I would go back and do that, but I got to work with what I have,
Just seeing these girls, and I'm getting goosebumps now as we talk about it again, just seeing them persevere, seeing them live healthy lives. I think Grace says in the film and in the interview, humans are resilient, and I think these three women are the epitome of resilience, despite the medical community absolutely failing them.
The Detransition Diaries is the latest of about 10 documentaries that Lal and her team have produced. It can be rented online. Daniel Hall, NTD News, Livermore, California.
A transportation agency in Northern California reminds locals about public transit protocols. For Rail Safety Month in September, I got a rare behind-the-scenes look at their safety enforcement. The Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority, or VTA, provides public transit for Silicon Valley. On Friday, the agency demonstrated safety exercises such as traffic enforcement and checking for suspicious threats.
I've been involved with VTA over the past 5 years.
Sergeant Tyrone Monroe and his canine are one team that carries out day-to-day functions.
Since I have a dual-purpose dog that searches for explosives, we search different platforms, trains, buses, just to make sure that the ridership and the VTA staff is safe.
Monroe's 9-year-old Belgian Malinois, called Niner, was named after the San Francisco football team. Have you and your dog found anything so far?
Thankfully, no. We have never found anything that we haven't put out ourselves as a training aid. But yes, no, VTA has been very safe. We've never found anything, and we hope to pray that we don't ever find anything. But we train every day as if we are looking for somebody that could potentially cause harm to the public.
He says he and Niner enjoy going to work every day, but the focus is always work. While it's important to keep passengers safe inside the light rail, the VTA says when drivers are outside the light rail station, it's extra important to be careful as well. A spokesperson for the transit company said some trains can go 30 to 50 miles an hour, and it takes hundreds of feet to stop. She said accidents happen when drivers normally don't respect crossing gates.
It's very common that our drivers, they don't respect those crossing gates, that they think they can beat the train, right? That they can go faster, but unfortunately, that is not the case. So that's something very common that happens here in our system. Bermudez
said the sheriff's team monitors the VTA's yards and stations.
We want people to know that what we're doing today, we do it all the time. It's just that most of the time they don't see it. We don't want them to know that we're doing this, but we do want them to know that our system is safe, and along with the Sheriff's Department, we're going to do everything we can to keep our riders and our drivers safe on our system.
VTA ridership dropped during the COVID-19 pandemic, but in a Thursday announcement, ridership is now back up to 75% of pre-pandemic numbers. David Lamb, NTD News, California. We're going to take a short break, but here's a look at what we've got for you when we come back. Every day, tons of trash are sent to local landfills, something that many people may take for granted. We'll hear what it takes to keep a city clean and functioning. That and more on California Today. Many Californians are getting a direct deposit from the state this fall. The payment will range from $200 to $1,050 depending on income and dependence. Called inflation relief payments by state leaders, the payment is a tax refund in actuality. Anyone that filed their 2020 state taxes on time and made less than $250,000 if filed single or $500,000 jointly are eligible. The state leaders originally wanted to implement some kind of gas price relief. Ideas included money sent directly to registered car owners and a pause on state taxes on gas. The talks eventually turned into a tax refund for all, car owner or not. But part of the gas talks made it through. Diesel vehicle owners will still notice lower prices at the pump starting next month. According to the State Department of Finance, the one-year pause on sales tax for diesel will likely benefit businesses. The state's relief plan will also provide funding to programs such as emergency rental assistance, utility pay support, child care licensing, and food bank support. The middle-class tax refund will start to go out next month. Every state in the country has landfills. California has the most. One landfill in Southern California takes in 1,000 tons of trash daily, and at one point they'll reach capacity and cease operations. But they're open now, and business is thriving. NTD's Bill Thomas tells us more.
There's something in life we all use, but none of us own and few of us have ever seen. It's called the landfill, and it's a critical element of everyday life for all of us. So today we paid a visit to the Calabasas landfill here in Agoura. It's about an hour outside of downtown Los Angeles, and we're on a mission to learn all we can about landfill operations.
Landfills have come a long way. More than just a place to dump rubbish, many of our landfills are doing all they can to protect the environment and even produce energy. At the same time, they're being a good neighbor to the communities they serve. Habib Karat, Solid Waste Operations Manager with the LA County Sanitation Districts, talked about daily operations at a modern-day landfill.
This landfill started in 1961. It's owned by LA County, and the LA County Sanitation Districts manages this landfill. This landfill is permitted for 3,500 tons per day, and currently we're averaging about 1,000 tons per day that's coming into the landfill.
It's a busy operation, and Karat says they take in more than just trash.
There's strictly rubbish that gets buried, but there's a lot of recycling that takes place at a landfill. You've got green waste that comes in that gets recovered and composted outside the landfill sites. We've got asphalt that comes in that gets crushed and recycled for roads and winter decks, so then when it rains, the trash trucks can still come in and dump their trash and not have to be, stuck in any mud.
They also have ways of handling other recyclables that make it to the landfill.
We've got tires that get removed from the landfill. We have white goods and metals that get removed from the landfill. So there's a lot of recycling that takes place at the landfill. So not everything is buried, and not everything will become part of this mountain.
Karat gave the surprising number for just how deep the trash is buried.
So the site is about 500 acres, but what's permitted for refuse is around 300. Currently, we have about 150 to 200 feet of trash that's currently buried on the site.
With so much trash on the ground, he also said there are safety precautions in place for the well-being of nearby communities.
With regards to water quality, we have an intricate, what we call a liquid collection system that was placed at the bottom of the landfill when it was first developed. That collects any liquids from the trash, and it gets exported through the sewer system.
Karat also said they have barriers that were built throughout the landfill to stop liquids from exiting the facility and going into adjacent neighborhoods. He also pointed out that the quality of the water at the perimeter of the landfill is always being monitored. On top of all that, the trash is being used for energy.
We have both vertical wells that are placed throughout the site, and we also have horizontal trenches that are placed through the trash. We have a vacuum system that will pretty much blow or, transport this gas system all the way to our power plant. And at the power plant, what happens is this gas gets conditioned, it gets cleaned, and then turned into energy where we generate electricity.
Karat says they're constantly producing 4 megawatts of energy, which is sold to utility companies. That's enough energy to provide electricity to 4,000 homes. But not all waste is so easy to deal with. The team has to be wary of hazardous waste like radioactive material.
The first step is we have monitors at our scales that will detect any radioactive material coming in at the trucks. That's the first thing. And then secondly, we have hazardous waste technicians that randomly check the loads that are being dumped here at the landfill to make sure that none of that material is present as part of those loads. And if they are, they get removed and they get disposed of correctly.
Other waste includes old electronic parts, also known as e-waste.
No, we do not take electronic waste here at the site. That is also considered a universal waste, which is hazardous and needs to be removed and recycled properly.
A functioning landfill for 62 years, Karat says the facility will most likely close in 10 years, and there will be a bright future in store for the land.
But typically a lot of closed landfills turn into parks, for the neighborhood, for the regional area, and even sometimes they will add recreational activities as part of the closure.
The one message Karat wanted to get out is dividing up your trash really matters.
When you're placing your trash in the different bins, which ones really matter with regards to recycling and which one doesn't. My other message is to let everybody know that organics, are not going to be allowed to be dumped in the landfills anymore. And when I say organics, green waste, which we've been doing for a while, but also food waste.
In one way or another, we're all landfill customers, so please do your part to separate your trash from your recyclables and dispose of your e-waste appropriately so that our landfills will be here to do their job of keeping the environment safe and clean. Bill Thomas, NTD News, California.
Now to NTD's Thomas Christian for an update on sports.
I'm Thomas Christian, giving you the California Today Sports Roundup. Some of the most iconic moments of Roger Federer's glittering career featured Rafael Nadal across the net, but on Friday, his great Spanish rival will be alongside him for his final bout. Federer announced last week that the Laver Cup would be his final competitive event, having failed to overcome a nagging right knee issue that required multiple surgeries. While the injury means he won't be able to play singles matches at the Laver Cup, a 3-day team event in which Europe takes on the rest of the world, he will conclude the opening day alongside Nadal as they face American duo Jack Sock and Frances Tiafoe. The 41-year-old Federer, winner of 20 Grand Slam titles and for many the greatest player to wield a tennis racket, is back in one of his favorite cities to bring down the curtain on a 24-year professional career that scaled staggering heights. As farewells go, it simply could not be better. Federer played Nadal 40 times in one of the most compelling rivalries witnessed in tennis. Who could forget their 2008 Wimbledon final when Nadal denied Federer a 6th consecutive title, the time Federer cried following a defeat in a brutal 2009 Australian Open final, or the 2017 Australian Open final when Federer opened a 5-year wait for his 18th major title by defeating Nadal in a classic. No quarter has ever been given on the court, but despite the ferocity of their duels, deep respect endures. Which is why Federer said earlier this week that playing with Nadal would be a beautiful way to conclude a career that caught fire when he claimed his first Grand Slam title in 2003 by winning Wimbledon. Europe's captain Bjorn Borg, not surprisingly, granted him his wish. Pinch hitter Mookie Betts delivered a game-ending RBI single as Los Angeles scored twice in the bottom of the 9th to pull out a victory over visiting Arizona. The Dodgers had just 2 hits through 8 innings before pulling off the comeback. Los Angeles moved 2 wins away from tying the club record for a single season while lowering their magic number for clinching the #1 seed in the NL playoffs to 3. Arizona's Zach Gallen set career highs for innings pitched and strikeouts. He gave up 2 hits and 1 run with no walks. Dodgers 3, Diamondbacks 2. Mike Yastrzemski doubled, homered, and scored twice to help San Francisco complete a 4-game sweep of Colorado in Denver. Jock Peterson went 3 for 4 with an RBI, and Luis Gonzalez and Jason Vosler each contributed 2 hits for the Giants, who improved to 11-5 against Colorado this season. Jarrell Cotton made his Giants debut and threw 2 2/3 innings of scoreless relief in the middle innings to earn the win. Jonathan Daza and Michael Toglia had 2 hits apiece for the Rockies, who finished with 10 hits. Giants 3, Rockies 0. Brendan Donovan hit a 7th-inning grand slam off reliever Nick Martinez to lead visiting St. Louis to victory in San Diego, snapping the Padres' 5-game winning streak. Donovan's first career slam erased a 3-1 Padres lead and presented the win to Cardinals starter Jack Flaherty, who went 6 innings in his longest outing of the season. It was Donovan's 5th homer of the season. Flaherty gave up 3 runs on 4 hits. Giovanni Gallegos picked up his 14th save. Cardinals 5, Padres 4. And that's all for the sports.
That's all we've got for you tonight. We'd like you to join us again on California Today every weekday at 8:30 p.m. Make sure to check out our broadcasts on our California Today webpage. You can find it at ntd.com/California-today. You can also find all of our top latest clips there ready to share with friends and family. Send us a message on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or through our email, california.today@ntd.com. I'm David Lam, sitting in for Liang Zhang. Have a wonderful weekend.